I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah. That is what I heard them say way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. That is what I heard them say, way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. Whoa. Hey, hey. Whoa, oh, 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 whoa, oh, 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 oh.
And now, live from beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you're watching My Fellow Americans with your host, Spike Cohen.
Yes! Yes! Yes, it's me! It's me! Look, I got a haircut, finally. Keep clapping. Clap because you can see my face now. How would we know that you could see my face if you didn't keep clapping? Welcome to My Fellow Americans. I am literally Spike Cohen. Thank you for taking a break from your social distancing and or protesting of social distancing today to join me here, Spike Cohen, on My Fellow Americans. I promise not to touch you or even come within 6 feet of you. That is my solemn promise to you on this Wednesday, the 13th of May. We've got a great show for you tonight. This is a Muddy Waters Media production. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Anchor, Twitter, Periscope, iTunes, Google Play, Float, Twitch. We're on Twitch now. Not 100% sure what that means, but we are on Twitch. Check us out on all of the major podcasting platforms if you wish to simply listen to this, because looking at me is just too much. I totally get it. Be sure to do that. Check us out. Be sure to like us, follow us, 5-star us, hit the bell. If there is a bell on whatever platform you are watching or listening to this, be sure to hit the bell if applicable, and share this right now, this very second. The last thing that I want you and your loved ones to have to do is miss out on a roughly hour-long Libertarian podcast on a Wednesday evening or whenever you're sharing this. So be sure to give the gift of Spike Cohen today. Kids love it. This episode, of course, is brought to you by the Libertarian Dad Bod Calendar, featuring some of the sexiest libertarian men to ever be both libertarian and sexy and male at the same time, including this sexy, sexy beast right here. You may know him. His name is Spike Cohen. Be sure to check him out today, libertariandadbod.com. That is only $12, including shipping there. That includes shipping. That is an insane deal. This episode is also libertariandadbod.com. This episode is also brought to you by the Libertarian Waffle House Caucus, the fastest growing caucus in the Libertarian Party that is related to waffles and houses, which in fact have waffles inside of them. And of course, this episode is brought to you by the Vermin Spike 2020 campaign featuring Vermin Supreme, Spike Cohen, and the Badger. Be sure to go to verminsupreme2020.com to find out how you can help be a part of Team Supreme. This episode, of course, is brought to you by one of our only actual paid sponsors, Chris Reynolds, personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, who promises that if you are ever in the Tampa Bay area of Florida and are looking and have been personally injured in any way that you think requires some kind of monetary recompense, be sure to get in contact with Chris Reynolds right here. This really doesn't do anything to help. This is just a picture of his face. If you see someone that looks like this, be sure to reach out to him. Or a more efficient way may be to go to chrisreynoldslaw.com and find out more. And yes, what else do we have here? Oh, the intro and outro music is brought to you on this episode of My Fellow Americans is brought to you by the amazing and talented Mr. Joe Davi. That's Jodavi. Go to his Facebook, go to his SoundCloud, go to jodavimusic.bandcamp.com, buy his entire discography. It's going to be one of the greatest investment decisions you've ever made in your entire life. Thank you, Mr. Joe Davi. I'd like to thank Le Bleu for my delicious, ultra pure drinking water right here. See that? Ultra pure drinking water that I'm drinking on this episode. It's also oxygenated with ozone. It is BPA free, non-carbonated, and kosher, and made in America, just like me. Bulavanaka. I've also got some orange juice here. Very rare thing for the show, not just water. I've also got orange juice that I'm drinking. Be sure to drink some orange juice today for your vitamin C. Also Bulavanaka. Shout out to Tehran Turks and Mominum, as always. Let's get to it. You know why we're here. I'm running for the Libertarian Party nomination to be your next Vice President of the United States of America. And so I am here, your humble, possible Libertarian nominee for VP of the USA, VPOTUS, to answer any questions you may have and to share some updates from this past week about the campaign. I'm also going to do something incredibly brave, which is I'm going to share our phone number, which is probably a good idea. We're about to find out together if that was a good idea. But this is the phone number here. I probably should go ahead and set that up so I can take phone calls if they in fact come in. And now I can. So that's good. So be sure to call in if you have any questions. You're also always free to ask questions in the comments, and I will be happy to answer them. And let me go through and see what we have here for questions. And got a lot of comments. First question. When is the show supposed to start? Right now. This very second. It was actually supposed to start about 10 minutes ago, but it's starting now. Brian McDonald says, I don't know what you guys think, but I believe that the Libertarian Dad should definitely be in the Libertarian Dad calendar. Just a little food for thought. I am not in charge of the Libertarian Dad bod calendar. Yep, I already have calls. Here we go. This is going to be good. So from a 603. Okay. Yeah, well, I am, in fact, answering it. There we go. 603 area code. Thanks for calling in. Who's this?
Hi, Spike. This is Richard Manzo. I'm a delegate from New Hampshire and the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Vice Chair. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Richard Manzo, Vice Chair of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, as well as a delegate representing the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. How can I help you?
Well, I'm calling in today to update your viewers on a legal matter. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire will be suing the state of New Hampshire in regards to ballot access relief. We sent in a request. We've been ignored in essence, and we will be moving forward with a suit. And my question to you, Mr. Cohen, is, do you pledge as vice presidential nominee to support all of our down-ballot legal matters with your time, your effort, and your bully pulpit?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. And absolutely, I think that one of the most important things that we can be letting people know is that one of the reasons that they often don't have effective third choices besides the Republicrats is because the Republicrats do everything they can to shut them out. And I think that once we are sharing ideas with them, we obviously need to be explaining that we have an incredibly difficult time, depending on the different states. Each state is, different in terms of its difficulty level, but many are incredibly difficult to actually even get on the ballot in the first place, unless, of course, you are a Republican or Democrat, in which case you just get nominated and you're automatically on the ballot. So yes, I would absolutely use my bully pulpit to promote the fact that we need to get on the ballot, especially right now in light of the restrictions. So for those who don't understand what's going on here, in most states, you need to meet a certain threshold of petitions signed to get you on the ballot. And of course, in order to be able to do that, especially in the states that require thousands or tens or even hundreds of thousands of votes or petitions signed, you have to be going to big events. You have to be knocking on doors. You have to really work hard to get enough signatures, especially since if the threshold is, let's say, 10,000 signatures, you really need to get 20,000 signatures because the Republicrats that are in charge of the Board of Elections are going to do everything they can to disqualify as many of your signatures as possible. That the signature wasn't legible, that they didn't sign it right, that they had also signed another petition. There are all sorts of things that they'll try to do to try to get it knocked out and ruled ineligible. And so that is a very important thing that, and of course right now, with the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown orders and everything else, it is functionally impossible to get a large number of signatures because there are no major events you can go to try to get them. You can't even really go into any major areas where a lot of people are, grouping together because it's not happening. People aren't grouping together. They are intentionally staying as far away from each other as possible. And of course, you can't knock on doors if that's even legal in the state that you're doing it in, because no one wants to answer their door and sign something that a bunch of other people have also already touched. So it presents a lot of challenges. So yes, absolutely, I will 100% pledge and have been very open about the fact that very upfront about the fact that I will be actively promoting any party, any state affiliate, anyone who is trying to, in the Libertarian Party, who is trying to get on the ballot. So thank you so much for your question, Richard.
And thank you for having me, Spike.
Thank you. And let's see, here's the next call. Area code 214, who am I speaking with? Hello, area code 214. Hey, thanks for calling. I don't know how to hang that up. So, well, thank you for that call. Area code 214, if you're trying to call in again, I will try to answer it sooner. And so let's go through the messages here. This is the fun part, folks, of having a live show that you produce and host yourself. You get to do everything all at the same time live while everyone's watching. Yes. 512 area code. 512 area code. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, Spike, this is Rohan Desai.
Hi, Rohan. How are you doing?
Doing well, sir. Glad to see you on the show. Just a quick question.
Sure.
I've been reading a lot of libertarians and large L and small L libertarians posting about incremental change and how we as libertarians need to be careful of the optics of how we engage in activism. What's your take on that?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So obviously, as libertarians, we want our end goal, or at least for most of us, is a much more voluntary society, something that is drastically different than what we face now, which is a very top-down, centrally planned society that is becoming ever increasingly more centrally planned, more centralized, more authoritarian. We seek a move towards the opposite. The reality is that we can't simply snap our fingers and make all of that happen. So, of course, there is going to have to be some, for lack of a better word, incremental changes. That things are going to happen over time. I think where a lot of libertarians get confused or disheartened is in the idea that our incrementalism should start in our messaging. That not only should we be pushing for changes to be incremental, but that we should be incremental in how much of our ideal we even share with people in the first place. And so a lot of people believe that if, for example, we share our full platform and our full beliefs of what our preferred society would look like and what our solutions and our platform applied to this country and this world would look like, that it's going to scare people because they've never heard of anything as they would consider it extreme or radical as what our ideas are. I believe just the opposite. I believe that the vast majority of people are they completely innately understand that something is wrong, that this way has failed them, especially younger people in marginalized communities, but really everyone at this point, especially right now with this pandemic and this lockdown. The vast majority of people understand intuitively and innately that something is wrong, that this is not working, that we're not safe, that we're not secure, that we're not prosperous, that we are, holding on by a thread. And even though we're getting constant input from corporate media, from the government, from the people that claim to be in charge over us, that everything's fine, everything's under control, just listen to everything they have to say and obey and comply and everything will be fine. I think the vast majority of people understand inherently that that's not true. And no one's really telling them that it isn't true. No one that's providing a political alternative to the Republicans and Democrats is telling them that that's not true. So I believe that we should be upfront and bold. And yes, we should be empathetic about the messaging. We shouldn't, go into, people's spaces and kick things over and scream taxation is theft and then run out the door. We need to be understanding of what people's concerns are, but we need to present ourselves as trustworthy and reliable and understanding people. We need to be empathetic and listen to their concerns, and then we need to propose our solutions after listening to their concerns, explain why the state and why the Republicrats have failed them, and then explain why our beliefs and our solutions are the way forward, why they will work, in contrast to the government and the Republicans and Democrats who have failed them, why our ideas are better and why they would work. The alternative is to continue to present ourselves as some kind of half measure different or better than the current options of the Republicans and Democrats. And the problem is when you do that, any third party candidacy is an invitation to voters to vote for a candidate and a party that statistically is likely to lose. And so given that backdrop, when we present ourselves as kind of like the Republicans and kind of like the Democrats, but better. And, our solutions are similar, but not scary, but better, just a little bit better. And they don't really listen to you, but we do. What you are presenting voters with are two options. The first option are the Republicans and Democrats, who are not really representing them and not really doing what they said they would do, but they're also likely to win. And the second option is this new party, the Libertarian Party, that represents them somewhat more and does seem to be listening to them more and does seem like, like they might be pretty good, but they also are very likely not to win. They are almost assured not to win. Given those options, we see what happens. The vast majority of voters vote Republican and Democrat. We get 1%, we get 2%, we get maybe 3 or even 4%. And in some local and regional elections, we might actually win some, or we may get in second place, or we may get a large vote. On the national level and the statewide level, it hasn't worked yet. The Libertarian Party has existed for 49 years and has not won a single federal or statewide election. No president, no vice president, no Senate, no U.S. Congress, no governor, no attorney general, none of that. In order to do that, we have to drop the idea that our ideas should be presented incrementally and that our ideas should be presented moderately. We have to present ourselves boldly, unapologetically, apply them to people's lives as solutions. And then when we do that, we will disabuse them of the notion that they should even be considering the Republicans or the Democrats. I'm all for incremental change. Incremental change will come when we've made enough of an impact on the culture and changed the cultural conversation enough so that we start winning some big elections and even more smaller elections so that now we have a seat at the table, and now the people that have been in charge will have to negotiate with us because now we're at the table. Then we can secure real incremental, real noticeable incremental change. That's never going to happen if we continue to present ourselves in a scared pool, unsure that our ideas are sellable to the public kind of presentation. People can sense if you're being upfront about what you believe or not, and if you're constantly having to water down or make milk toast your ideas, it starts to look like maybe you don't believe in your ideas enough to present them. And from a negotiation standpoint, if we look at politics as a negotiation, you never start a negotiation by moving half or most of the way towards what the person that you're negotiating with wants. You start with what you want, and then you build up enough clout and cred and bona fides to be able to actually have them negotiate with you. We're not in a position to negotiate right now. We're in a position to present who we are, to grow our reach, to affect things on a cultural level so that we can get positions in government and then see the incremental, progressive changes towards a more voluntary society that we want. I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does. In fact, that is probably one of the most articulate defenses of our messaging and one of the most articulate arguments I've heard against the incremental messaging crowd. So thank you so much for that. I mean, honestly, that was, someone had pointed it out earlier to me that any politician can talk for 5 minutes in an interview, but for you to talk at length about our ideas with such excitement and such articulation is honestly what has me really excited about being a libertarian.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye. So yeah, I am a strong believer that, we have to be realistic. We are not going to get elected and then government simply goes away or becomes tiny and we've won for liberty and we're now all libertarians. That's not how it works. The way it works is you get into positions of power by first influencing the culture, getting enough people on your side, not just voting for you, but on your side for your ideas so that you and your ideas can win. And then when that happens, now you have a seat at the table. Here we go. We got calls after calls. Okay. 740 area code. Who am I speaking with? Yeah, there we go. Well, thanks for calling. So I mean, once we get a seat at the table, we can actually start seeing that actual incremental change. And we try to get it as rapidly as we can. We don't have to take little tiny measure changes if we don't have to, but ultimately we're not going to get anything to take until we get a seat at the table, and we're not going to get a seat at the table until we have affected the culture and presented our beliefs, libertarian beliefs, as a not only a viable alternative, but a distinct and really the only viable alternative to the Republicrats. We have to create a narrative. The Republicrats have created this problem. The reason they've created this problem is because they have doubled down on what we call the cult of the omnipotent state, the idea that things should be centrally planned in a governmental statist system, and that everything will be fine if we just put the right people in charge and have them control things from the top and we'll all be okay. We need to challenge that. Here we go. 509 area code. Who am I speaking with?
This is the Laser Legend.
The Laser Legend himself, Matt Hicks. Matt Hicks, how in the hell are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I've got a show on the internet, and I'm running for vice president.
I heard
amazing stuff. Did you hear? I'm running for vice president under the Libertarian Party. Hopefully.
I also heard about that. And what's crazy is, check this out. Blew my mind. Confirm for me this rumor that I heard, if you could. I heard that you were endorsed by both the Mises Caucus and the Radical Caucus.
Did you hear that?
I did. I'm not sure how true it is. That's why I wanted to come to you with it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because I was actually going to, in between breaks of the phone calls that have been coming in, I was going to talk about that. So if you want to stick around, I'm going to be telling the crowd exactly about that.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to stick around. But I did actually have a question for you.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
And this was a question I don't already know the answer to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So as the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party, I'm just assuming it's going to happen because I believe in you that much.
Oh,
but
wow,
as the vice presidential nominee, will you commit right now to appearing in the next Libertarian Dad Bod calendar, preferably in a tandem photo shoot with your presidential candidate?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yes.
God, I love you. I love you so much.
And I will be so sexy. I am working. If you thought I was sexy in the last one, I've been working on my core. I'm going to have a great tan. I had to be in Canada for a long period of time last year because of some, had to be up there to deal with some stuff with our home there. But my plan this year is to be a lot closer to the equator, namely America. Campaigning for our ticket. And I'm definitely going to be tanning as I do that, because tanning is one of the most effective ways I can bring people into this movement and this party, simply by showing my body to the world. And in doing so, I also get lots of sunlight, which is good for tanning, and also good for getting vitamin D. Vitamin D, skin converts it to D2.
And since you bring up your commitment to tanning, I think I'm going to make a new campaign graphic for you with the slogan, Spike 2020, suns out, guns out.
Yes. Correct. That is absolutely good. So no, but yes, I absolutely pledge to be in the next Libertarian Dad Bod calendar, which again is available at libertariandadbod.com. And but yeah, no, stick around, because we're going to talk about the Mises and Radical rumor that you referenced in just a moment. So a couple things happened over the week. One thing was we had over at Muddy Waters, we had a Twitter poll where we asked who people's preferred candidate for the vice presidential nomination was. And Twitter only allows 4 options. So we put up myself, Larry Sharp, Ken Armstrong, and John McAfee. And I did win that vote. And a couple other things that happened over the previous week or so. A week not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, I was in the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus vice presidential forum with Larry Sharp and Ken Armstrong, and that went very well. We got to talk with each other. We agree on most things, but we were also able to kind of mix it up on our differences on policy and messaging and strategy and so forth, and it went very well. It went so well that so 2 things happened. I received on the same day, on Mother's Day, the Radical Caucus, Libertarian Party Radical Caucus, voted to endorse me for the presidential nomination, or vice presidential nomination. I apologize. And then also that same day, on the strength of my performance in the VP forum and in speaking with the members of the caucus, they voted, I believe, unanimously. They voted to endorse me for the vice presidential nomination as well. And so I am uniting the clans. I am uniting.
Yeah, I just want to point out for anybody that might be tuning in that's just now starting to dip their toes in the water of the Libertarian Party. For any of you out there in viewer land who are unawares, having a candidate that has enough broad appeal to get both the endorsement of the Radical Caucus and the Mises Caucus is unheard of. That's like, that's like figuring out a way to get oil and water to mix.
Which I also pledge to do once I am the nominee.
I love you so much, Spike. Congratulations, and you've got my full support.
All right, I appreciate it, and have a great evening, and I will talk with you soon. Thanks, Matt.
Indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, great. Well, we've had a couple people that have called. Thanks to the limitation of the system I'm using, I can't call you back because I don't see who they're from. But until I answer them. But feel free to call back. So I'll go through some of these questions. Robin Dominic asks, are you wearing pants? That is none of your business, but thank you. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. 781 area code. 781 area code. Who's calling?
This is Stephen Messina calling from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh, dear. Hello, Mr. Messina. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing amazingly.
Yeah, some of the fans might recognize me from last week. To which I would like to publicly apologize.
Thank you.
It's just that I have such a want the American people and people all over the world to see your face and not have it be obstructed by a microphone or really anything.
Right. Yes. So Steve Messina is referring to an incident last week on the Muddied Zoom where he said that it's a, quote, good look when your microphone makes up 75% of your frame, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but thank you anyway. Now,
so this is an epic takedown, really.
Some have called it that. I certainly wouldn't agree. But I didn't even care. So you are calling to publicly apologize. Is that correct?
That was one. That was my public apology. But I heard you talking about the endorsements. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But I don't think that we can underestimate the role that may have played in kind of getting some buzz.
Yeah, no, that definitely is why that happened. So you're positing that the reason that I received the unprecedented endorsement of both the Radical and Mises Caucus was on the strength of the, I guess, sympathy vote from you physically harming me on my own show?
I mean, did it hurt your chances? I would say no. I don't think we can say that I don't think we can say that it hurt anything.
Well, it definitely didn't hurt anything.
I had a real question for you, and it is in the spirit of, and I'll be honest with you, I would love for it to be a more prolonged conversation at some point, but when you're not in campaign mode, but right. the part of it that's pertinent to campaign mode and what you're talking about with the culture is I'm reading a book right now off a recommendation of a popular another podcast. I don't want to give them any shine on yours or anything like that, but
of course.
But maybe a good amount of your audience might be familiar with it, but it was How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. And it's, are you familiar at all?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, so, it seems to be popular in libertarian circles. I think it was written by a former presidential candidate, and he's kind of, for interpretation, he's taking the angle, that people are very...
Hold on one second.
Okay.
321 area code. I have to take Steven's question because I can't put you on hold, so please call back in a minute. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, or don't 312 area code. You know what I mean? Maybe take a break.
321.
But yeah, I'm just kidding. But yeah, basically, it's just kind of saying it's like, look, in this world, you're really not going to change. You're not going to move the needle in any significant way. You're only one person. There's ways that you can kind of live free in your own way, and it goes into some details. And it at first it kind of makes a lot of sense, and it's somewhat freeing and kind of somewhat discouraging at the same time. It kind of stirs things up a little bit, but then because it's basically saying the society is not going to change unless they're ready for it, collectively to change. But I see too much. I just kind of want your interpretation of it. As someone who is part of a group, the group has a name, which is one thing. Says don't organize yourself, don't have a name, stay under the radar. I see the needle moving culturally. I see people's minds change, people being kind of like woken up a little bit, and I'm interested to know your take on that, or maybe some stories that you can, because I'm asking the question, you don't have to worry about being humble, but just from talking with people, are there stories that you have that you changed some minds or woke people up? Because I mean, you might, like you're saying, you may as well say something if you have this platform, if it's not necessarily to win office, if it's a long shot or whatever, you have this platform where you can talk to people. You may as well say something.
Might as well use it. Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. And thank you for that question. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, as libertarians, when we're running for office, we know the odds against us. So we do run to win, but we also run with the understanding that statistically we have our odds shaped up for us, and it can be often very difficult for us to win. And so because of that, we always have to be looking towards a goal of, at the very least, sharing the message. Like Steven said, if you're up there and you have a chance to say something, go ahead and say it. So I can give two examples, which I give often. And in fact, Steven, you were actually at one of these examples.
Wow, that's not.
So two things that I did was a door knocking tour that we did in a housing project, and also a campus tour that we did in a college campus on UNC Greensboro. In both situations, we were going into areas that were that are often written off by libertarians because in the housing projects, the people overwhelmingly vote Democrat. They are living on public property, and many of them are entirely or mostly dependent on the state. And so, a lot of people believe it would stand to reason that they don't want to hear what we have to say because we're talking about, basically eliminating the state's involvement in our lives, dismantling the state's intrusion upon our life. The other group with the college students, we were going to a liberal arts college, which was overwhelmingly left wing. And so, a lot of Bernie bros and Bernie girls, whatever, Bernie people, a lot of Bernie people of various genders, and a lot of, I think when we were there, Liz Warren was still in the race, so a lot of Liz Warren supporters, not a lot of libertarians, not even any Republicans, just so two groups of people that are often regarded as unreachable because they are, many people say very statist. In going into those two groups, the first thing that I did when going in there was really listening to what they had to say. And what I heard overwhelmingly from people in the housing projects was that they were scared of the police. They all had side hustles. They all had jobs that they did, careers that they had. Almost all of them, even people in their 70s, were doing things on the side. They were having to do them illegally because they couldn't afford the licensing and occupational licensing requirements and the schooling requirements and everything else to do things like braid hair or fix someone's sink or mow someone's lawn or these things that you have to pay the state hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars and possibly even go to school for many years to be able to do basic everyday things for a small fee. And so instead they just did them illegally. Some of them did them in exchange for each other's services. When the police came through, they would call each other. They had these sort of like mesh defense networks where when they'd see a cop come through or even someone suspicious like us, they would call around everyone else there to alert them to the fact that people were there that weren't really a part of the neighborhood and or the police, so that if anyone was doing anything, like mowing lawns without a license, they could stop doing it so they wouldn't get in trouble. And so their whole thing was, we just want to be able to try to get ahead and get off of welfare and get out of this system and stop being handed crumbs that have been taken from us without the police, breathing down our necks. And so talking with them, I talked a lot about occupational licensing. I talked about the war on drugs. I talked about the history behind why they were in the situation they were and how libertarian solutions would eventually get them out of that situation by simply freeing them to be able to do the things that they are good at, to be able to get out of it. And it was incredibly, every time we went out, we signed up dozens of people to the state and local party there in Wilmington, North Carolina. We got tons of people's contact information. We got people that signed up our ballot access petitions, and we changed the conversation in that neighborhood. People who had never heard of libertarianism, even though they were largely living as libertarians, were awakened to that. And we switched a lot of those people over. Same thing that happened in the college campuses. We'd hear what they had to say, and what we were hearing overwhelmingly was that their biggest concerns were student debt and would they be able to find a job when they got out of college. And so in talking with them, after hearing over and over again what their concerns were, that overwhelmingly they were worried about student debt, being able to get a good job when they got out of college so that they could pay off their student debt, I started asking. And of course, with them, I would ask, what do you think of government? And they largely said, we don't like when government does this. We don't like when government does that. We don't like when government is, abusive and things like that. But, overall, government's a good thing and it's necessary and we need it and we need more of it. We need it to be more involved in certain aspects of our life, like education, like healthcare and so forth. And so I said, okay, cool. And I would ask them, what are you majoring in? And they would tell me, and I'd say, oh, that's great. Why are you majoring in that? Almost all of them said the same thing. I'm majoring in this in order to be able to get into my preferred, scope of work, my preferred field of work. I'd say, that sounds great. Let me ask you this. What if instead of going to school for 4 to 8 years and spending running up tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to go to work, what if you could just start working in some kind of internship or apprenticeship program where you would learn how to do what you want to do directly under the people who are already doing it professionally? And instead of spending, years and tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to do that. You did the work either for free or a small stipend to pay for your, cost of living or whatever, but you would probably be able to end up doing it within a year or two, or maybe 2 or 3 years, depending on what it is you're doing. You'd get to it much sooner, and you wouldn't have a mountain of debt behind you once you started. And they all said, that's great. They said that would be fantastic if I could just do an apprenticeship until, the people in that line of work determined I had reached a level of mastery to be able to do it professionally. But I can't do that. Then I'd say, well, why not? And they'd say, well, because I got to get I got to get my college degree. And I'd say, okay, but why? And they'd say, well, because then I got to get my license. And if I can't get a college degree, if I don't have that degree or that diploma, I can't get my license. And I'd say, but why? And they'd say, well, because, the government says, and then they'd figure it out. That's why they're in the situation they are, because some arbitrarily centrally planned rule or regulation said that in order to be able to do this particular thing, you had to get a license. And in order to get that license, you had to go to college and spend all this time to do it. And the reality that government had made that mandatory made it so that those schools could charge you whatever they wanted because you have to have it. And even worse, they injected themselves further into it through subsidies and grants and so forth, driving up the cost even more because they're removing the consumer of that service, which is education, with the payer of that service, which is the government many times. And by nationalizing student loans, now you can't go bankrupt, and even if you go bankrupt, you still have to pay that student loan back like it was a tax. So you're screwed. You run up that student loan like you were told to do your whole life, and now you're screwed. How are you going to pay it off? And so they then saw what the problem was. And again, we signed many people up to our state and the campus affiliate that we were growing. And we, again, changed the conversation in what is usually a very statist-friendly environment. I've continued doing that even after these lockdowns where we can't, actually get in touch with large groups of people in person. I've continued doing Zoom calls with Emerson College, with NYU. I have one coming up with Georgetown University, where we are talking with entire departments of these schools, hundreds of students and faculty, and sharing the libertarian message with them. So I understand the inclination to believe that things are hopeless, that people don't want to hear our solutions, that people, are just too married to statism and to, being safe or secure rather than free for us to be able to do any good. And I certainly encourage people to find like-minded people so that we can protect ourselves and try to, engage in, what they call agorism or counter economics as much as possible. But I disagree. My interaction with the public has shown me that largely a large number of them, not all of them, but a large number of them are open to hearing our message. And whether or not electoral politics is an effective way to do this or not, in order to do anything that we want to do in spreading the cultural message and in becoming more free, we need as many people as possible involved in it. And I will continue to do that as the nominee or not. So I hope that answered your question.
It really did. If I just may say one thing in closing, and you can hang up on me immediately, if not sooner. But everything that you said made so much sense. In the way that I look at it is like whether it's someone like that you're talking about who is up their eyes in student debt and doesn't really know why or doesn't understand the concept of their loans being guaranteed and indentured servitude and the whole thing. Right. Whether it's them or whether it's someone like me who is watching like all of their worst nightmares manifest themselves into reality in terms of progressive, rapidly expanding tyranny, or somebody else who is just kind of overall confused at what is going on and doesn't really know, but like you said, on some kind of visceral level, kind of feels something isn't right. In a year, no less, where there is, you have presumably Donald Trump and Joe Biden as your presidential nominees for Republican and Democrat. Right. It seems like such an opportunity, to say something. Yeah, like what a waste it would be to not say what we have to say. And for me, I don't know what's going to happen with anything else, but for me, in terms of the vice presidential nominee, I'm very happy that you got endorsed, and I think you would be a great person to say it.
Thank you. Hang up on me. I appreciate that. I'm going to hang up on you now. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Well, thank you, Stephen. And I now have 2 voicemails here, and I'm going to do a very brave thing and play them, having not listened to them already. So we will see together how this goes. An unexpected error has occurred. Oh, but it's reading it out. So this voicemail said, Spike, it's Jim Ray. Oh, hey, Jim. It's Jim Ray. I just wanted to call to gloat over the Mises and Radical Caucuses because I endorsed you first. Anyway, talk to you later. So thank you, Jim. Yes, Jim Ray did endorse me prior to both the Radical and Mises caucuses by like a good solid day, I believe. So let's get through some of these questions on the screen. Shannon Kurtz asked, would you support California's secession? I support the eventual individualization of the concept of power and autonomy, meaning that my ideal world is 7.5 billion autonomous individuals choosing to freely associate and disassociate as they wish, with no coercion or violence or threats of violence over them, and people simply choosing whom they wish to associate with and who they wish to find voluntary solutions with to the problems that we all face. So if that involves, states breaking up or cities breaking up from, larger unions, then I think that's what, that may be a step to it. If it requires us staying unified under one union and someone at the top, dismantling a lot of the regulatory burdens that are making us less free and making us have to be reliant on the state, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a top-down approach. And I think however we get to freedom is going to potentially be many different things. So my short answer is, if the people of California decide they want to form their own, break away from the union, then I think I more than likely, without knowing, as much about the specific details as to why, all things being equal, I would say yes. I mean, obviously we had situations where, states broke from the union because they wanted to continue to be able to own an entire race of people. And that was largely their stated reason for doing so. That obviously is not a good thing. And that was an incident of people, seceding for the purpose of being able to continue enslaving, again, an entire race of people and treating them as though they weren't actually people, but were instead cattle, even though they still wanted them counted on the census so that they'd have more power. But, so I mean, again, all things being equal, I support, people breaking down closer to individual autonomy, but I can't say I would support any secession movement because it would depend entirely on what their purpose is. Let's see here. A lot of very supportive messages. Thank you very much. Just looking for questions here. Stephen Messina says, even if Murray Rothbard were president tomorrow, it wouldn't mean anything if the culture isn't changed. Exactly. Seth Thomas has asked me about the LNC drama. And honestly, or Seth Thomas Benton has asked about my take on the LNC drama. That depends on which one you're talking about, because there's a lot of drama in the LNC right now. I think that, all things considered, I don't know how feasible it would be for a myriad of reasons to have an in-person convention. And I say that as someone who would prefer an in-person convention if at all possible. I don't know how feasible that is. I also don't know how feasible this online, we're going to see just how seamlessly this online presidential nomination and vice presidential nomination is going to go. I know there are a lot of concerns about transparency and everything being on the up and up, and we'll see how it goes. And I know there's some other LNC drama with people doing some whistleblowing about some supposed shenanigans going on in the party. I don't want to speak on that until there's more actual proof of it. I leave it up to the people who are doing the whistleblowing to say it, and you can decide if you believe what they're saying or not. And we'll see how it goes from that. Derek Perkins says, "Hey Spike, I may be a libertarian socialist, but I respect you." Thanks, Derek. I appreciate that. Sanj Mohip says, Spike, do you have kids? Can you have a dad bod without kids? Is this a scandal in the making? Listen, dad bod is a relative term. And I think any reasonable person who looks at this hunk of male beauty, of absolute virile, primal, I guess virility, for lack of a better word, just primal energy and presence, I think could easily describe. I think the term dad bod describes that perfectly, and only in positive ways. Let's see what else is here. Zachary Taylor asks, "Where is the couch?" Oh, the auction. You'll have to call Ashanti. DJLC Studio asks, "What kind of voting?" And I'm not sure what you mean. What kind of voting? And then he asks census year, and I'm not sure what that question is. So if you want to expound upon what that means, I'd be happy to hear it. A lot of questions here. I'm just looking for a lot of comments here. Just looking for questions. Chris Reynolds. Chris Reynolds says, "Spike, have you considered debating Mike Pence?" Well, that is ultimately the goal, Chris. If I am the nominee, we're going to push for getting at least 15% of the support in at least, I believe it's 2 opinion polls. Nationally recognized opinion polls, which will qualify us to be on the debate stage, and I will be debating Mike Pence and probably Kamala Harris, maybe Stacey Abrams, or Amy Klobuchar, or Gretchen Whitmer. There's a few people there I might be debating. I not only have considered it, I relish the opportunity as much as I can. Drew Lewis asks, "How will you destroy the Patriot Act and ensure nothing like it can occur again?" Now, obviously, as vice president, that's an excellent question. Obviously, as vice president, I can only advise the president unless something happens to the president and then I become the president. Other than that, it's largely a bully pulpit role and being the president of the Senate, presiding over the Senate. So I would say, but I can say in terms of what I would promote and what I would advise the president on. I believe the beauty of a lot of these acts that have been passed in recent years have been that a lot of authority was simply handed to the executive by the legislature. They simply just palmed off their legislative responsibilities by making them into regulatory responsibilities. So they will say the secretary of the whatever they've created, in this case Homeland Security and various other positions that they've created, will have the authority to determine X, Y, and Z. Basically saying all future legislative concerns on this specific issue will be decided by the people that we put in charge of doing that, who are in the executive branch. So a tremendous amount of power and latitude has been unfortunately put into the executive branch. The silver lining to that is that if a libertarian can get into office, into the president, into the White House, then they can undo a lot of that stuff by simply deeming it unnecessary or deeming it no longer needed. So a lot of the Patriot Act could be undone simply through executive orders and deregulation at the Department of Homeland Security level. It's been argued that we could the president could simply fire everyone in DHS and refuse to appoint anyone, or to nominate anyone for appointment by the Senate. So there's a lot of things that could be done there in terms of ensuring nothing like it can ever occur again. That is where the cultural level happens. We have to show the public why things like the Patriot Act, why things like the CARES Act, why things like Obamacare and Medicare Part D and all of these things that were, whatever good or bad intentions they have, what they have done have been to disrupt the market and create inequities in the market by centrally planning things and by putting a bunch of cronies and bureaucrats who represent the wealthiest people among us to determine how best to handle this. And so, perfect example, Patriot Act was a giant sop to the defense and surveillance industries, and so to the police to prison industrial complex and the military industrial complex, and all of that fed into this constant boondoggle of spending trillions of dollars every year on security theater. And so, using the bully pulpit to explain that as we dismantle it, explaining how we were not made more safe by it, we were just made less free by it, and how removing it makes us both safer and freer, will be the what we can do. Let's see here. Kenneth Blevins says, if for some presidential candidate, Kenneth Blevins says, if for some stretch of insanity I don't become POTUS, do you feel a run for Senate or for governor would make a bigger impact for the LP? I think you should run for whatever you want to. I think that you're a fantastic person, and whatever position you feel you are best suited for, I think you'll make some incredible waves in that. I certainly can't support you for POTUS because I'm Vermin Supreme's running mate. But if you run for anything that isn't POTUS or vice POTUS, I'd be happy to support you in anything that you do. So those are the questions that I have right now. And I do have one more. Was that the same voicemail? Okay, so we're at, why can't I hear that? Well, that's interesting. So it's supposed to be playing a voicemail, but I can't hear it. So sorry, 740 area code. I don't know why I can't hear what your question is, but you are welcome to call back. Again, the number, if anyone wants to call, is 813-644-2722. We're coming on to the 1 hour mark, so we'll probably be wrapping things up shortly anyway, but feel free to call in. We got some more questions. A question from Addy Leader Zavos. I hope I said your name right. Says, hi, Spike. You talked a little about Zoom meetings with different college audiences. As the nominee, what other strategies would you use or recommend that the party use to communicate the ideas of liberty to a broad audience while door-to-door canvassing and in-person conversations aren't really able to happen? That's an excellent idea. The short answer to that is leverage other forms of media. Get as much attention as you can online. Solid, effective, at times dynamic and even bombastic messaging to affect the greater culture. One thing that we do a lot on our social media, look for what's trending and see if 512 area code, if you can just bear with me, I'm finishing up a question that was asked, and then I will be happy to take yours if you can just hold on for one moment. So one thing we've done on social media, we look for things that are trending, and if there is a way for us to thread that into our overall overarching libertarian narrative, we do so, and we've gotten a tremendous amount of followers through that. We've more than tripled our social media since we started the campaign, and that was already a very large and broad social media reach even before we started campaigning. So that is one way to really do it. Engage wherever you can. Find people outside of political circles so that you can get in front of people that aren't even thinking politics right now. They're just so disgusted by what's going on because everyone is acutely aware of what's going on right now. And so, college events, calling into other people's programs or reaching out to other, podcasts and shows that may or may not be politically related to get your message out there. Just the short answer is get in touch, get in front of as many people as you possibly can. So I hope that answers your question. 512 area code, who am I speaking with? Hello? So I hope that answers your question. 512 area code, who am I speaking with?
Donovan Spencer.
Hi, Donovan. How are you doing?
I'm good.
That's great. Do you mind muting my show on your side so we're not hearing ourselves again? So, Donovan, how can I help you? What's your question? Hello?
Sorry, am I there?
Yeah, you're here now.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So what's your how can I help
do you think that Justin Amash is more valuable to the Libertarian Party as a sitting member of Congress or as a presidential candidate?
Thank you. That's a good question. So, especially in the way that he entered, I believe he has more value to us as a sitting congressman. I think if he had entered the race months or even a year ago and built up something as demonstrating that he's going to, represent our party as the presidential nominee, I think that the story might be a little bit different. But I think him as a sitting representative right now, with 6 months to go and a matter of a couple weeks before the nomination when he announced that he was running, I think he actually, and again, I don't say this without any bias. I say this as someone who has someone who would rather be the presidential candidate than him. That I'd rather have as our candidate than as our nominee than him. I do believe that having someone sitting as a sitting congressman would be far more powerful because statistically, he is far more likely to win re-election to his seat as an incumbent than he is to win a presidential contest as a third party, a member of a third party. And so I think it would be incredibly powerful to have him messaging in support of our nominee as a sitting congressman, hopefully doubling down on being able to get reelected as a sitting congressman. And then whether or not we win at the presidential level or in any other election, we still have a sitting congressman who is, promoting libertarian ideas as a Libertarian Party nominee or Libertarian Party candidate or Libertarian Party member and congressman for our party and our movement. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Did you have another question?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
And let's see here. Zachariah Fournier asks, large political factions seem to counter to libertarian ideals. How do you see a unified libertarian rise in politics without sacrificing parts of the platform, especially related to individual liberty and self-determination? That is an excellent question. That is the issue that we face. We have a large, and sometimes in previous election cycles, a prevailing school of thought, which is that in order to reach the statist masses, we need to sacrifice at times some of the most important parts of our platform. The idea of self-ownership, the idea of 269 area code. Please bear with me. I am finishing up answering a question that was in the comments. So if you don't mind holding. So, we are told that we often have to sacrifice the most important parts of our platform, the idea of self-own, not just our platform, but our philosophy, the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression and voluntary solutions, and that instead we should be promoting ourselves as kind of this, somewhat better option than the Republicans and Democrats, but nothing too extreme because that'll scare people. Well, that runs counter to every major political revolution and reform movement that has happened in this country or any other, where they presented a very bold and very divergent school of thought of how things should happen. They presented the current status quo as untenable and unacceptable, and themselves as the only viable way to make the changes needed. And they did it very boldly, dare I say very radically, and when they won, they were able to negotiate from a position of strength because they had changed the conversation. When I go to college campuses and Zoom calls with college courses, when I was doing door knocking and housing projects, when I was going to state conventions, libertarian conventions, when I was going to competing Republican and Democrat campaign events to convert their followers to our side, which was incredibly successful. What I saw time and time again was people who, they're Republicans and Democrats because those are the only options they have, and they've been told their whole lives that you're either a left-winger or a right-winger, you're either a Republican or a Democrat, or you might be an independent or a moderate, but that, they've been given a very small window of allowable opinion and told that's it. That's the entire spectrum. So when someone comes in and says, no, this is all garbage, these people are all telling you the same nonsense, here's a real alternative, they're very receptive to it because, we all innately and intuitively understand that something is wrong. This is not working. And so I've been I don't think there's anything magical about me, and yet I've been able to convert hundreds of people at a time in some cases, and dozens of people at a time in some cases, over to libertarianism in these college and events and housing project walkthroughs and door knocking campaigns and going to competing campaign events and all of these other things. I don't believe that there's anything, magical about me. I think it's just the fact that I have, gone and unapologetically presented our beliefs in an empathetic way that addresses the concerns they have noted. And I think that we not only can we see a growing and unified libertarian rise in politics without sacrificing parts of our platform, we have to do it by not sacrificing parts of the platform. Sacrificing parts of the platform is how we continue to say irrelevant and an unnecessary third option that no one even cares about. In order to become more unified and to grow the libertarian movement within the greater body politic, we have to be principled. We have to be unapologetic about what we believe. We have to present a bold, radical, dynamic divergence from what is currently happening. So I hope that answered your question. 269 area code. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, this is Logan Fleckenstein.
Hi, Logan. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Just doing all right. Got to talk with Vermin a little bit via live stream earlier with one of his live streams. And
oh, cool.
So it was fun, and you guys are growing on me, I gotta say.
I'm glad to hear it, man.
I'll admit at first I was a bit more just like, I just gotta do Amash. He's the obvious choice.
Right.
And now I'm like, he's not so obvious. And not to diss him, like I respect him. I live in Michigan, like he lives in his district's like an hour north of mine. And
right.
I've known him via Facebook a little bit over the years, and him and I wish each other happy birthday. He's a friendly, nice dude. Like he's a good guy. Like,
yeah, I'm sure.
And that's the thing. Like, I think personally, my personal opinion, most of the candidates running for the VP and the presidential, and probably even chair, are decent folks.
Of course,
in my
yes.
personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Although I don't want to be like that guy and try to bring up drama, but there is one candidate I do feel like we all kind of have to be like, come on, dude. And that's my personal, and you can disagree. If you disagree, I'm interested in understanding your perspective. But Jacob Hornberger, like, what do you think of him?
Okay, well, that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking it. So I first want to say, obviously, I am Vermin Supreme's running mate, and I have detailed many times and would be happy to do so, at any moment, why I believe Vermin is a unique opportunity for us, for the Libertarian Party, especially in this election cycle, to take the knowledge of our party and our movement to a totally different level of public knowledge and understanding. I mean, and in addition to him being just an absolutely terrific human being, I have grown to. I've always been a big fan of his, and now I am a believer in him as just a fantastic human being who really has a message of love and liberty to spread to the public. I do feel.
Also, sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Just one thing, I think a big thing that most people don't realize about him: very wise man.
Yes,
he's a very wise dude. Like once he takes off the boot and he's not doing his spiel, and he's just being him,
just being himself. Yep,
he's a wise dude. Like kind of like philosopher type king. Wise, in my opinion.
He is, yes, and that is absolutely correct. He is an incredibly smart guy. He loves doing his shtick. It gets people's attention, and that's the beauty of it. He figured out that he can do this shtick to lower people's cognitive defenses and get them to pay attention to him and have them not be ready to be bombarded with some kind of political message, and instead just hear what he has to say. And then once he has their attention, he's able to take the boot off, both figuratively and literally, and hit them with just an incredibly articulate, principled message of libertarianism. And it's why he is my top pick. To answer your question regarding To answer,
well, because mine is more the negative direction. It's like, because I feel like it's kind of I don't know. Personally, I don't get why he's so popular. I don't get it.
Are we talking about Jacob Hornberger?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't get it.
Well, let me give you my thoughts about Jacob Hornberger. So, again, obviously, Vermin Supreme is my top pick. I believe that he should be our next president. He should be our next presidential nominee. I will say this. I have done events with Jacob Hornberger, door knocking events side by side with him, where he was campaigning for his presidential campaign. I was campaigning for my vice presidential and Vermin's presidential campaign. I've met him at multiple conventions and things like that. I personally do believe that Jacob Hornberger is the real deal. He is an incredibly principled libertarian. I have seen him firsthand be able to talk to various communities and people to be able to spread the libertarian message. I will say, I personally, I haven't known him very long. I've known him for less than a year, really just during the life of this campaign. But all of my interactions with him have been very positive, and I have seen him to be a very articulate and principled presidential candidate. All of my concerns related to Jacob have been more about ability to spread the message far and wide compared to, for example, Vermin. But in terms of him as an individual, I like I said, all of my personal interactions with him and seeing him firsthand, I kind of think I do tend to believe that he's the real deal. I know there's stuff in the past with him with Harry Brown and things with the Libertarian Party of Virginia. I honestly have been too busy campaigning to really delve into what those, who's right on those subjects. I've heard a lot of both criticisms of him on those and defenses of him on those from people that I otherwise, that I respect their opinion on both sides of that. So I kind of have chalked that up to I'm less concerned with what happened 20 years ago with what he's doing now. Jacob's in an interesting position right now where, at least by all appearances, the entrance of Justin Amash potentially takes from a lot of his support base. And so I think, same
with Joe.
Yeah.
Same with Joe.
Yeah. And same with Joe. Yeah.
Oh, I've been this has been a big thing I've been paying attention to because of the corona, and I'm a poli-sci major guy.
Right.
So I've been paying attention to all this political science stuff. And plus I ran for office in 2016 for state rep in Michigan.
Okay.
And which that was a very blue district. Sorry about that noise.
No problem.
Very blue district. But I managed to get I think it's right a little bit above 5% or so.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and I also have a crazy backstory if you want to get into it. It's fun and interesting. But the point being I get this one thing that you appeals about with you and Vermin is that even though you guys don't try to go the left direction as much, although Vermin, I feel, is a bit more of a lefty than people may realize. He's at least a mutualist, I feel, is probably a better term to describe him that I don't hear people use for him, but I think might be accurate.
Yeah, he's a social market anarchist, so he's not like a communist. He's an anarchist. He is a market anarchist is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I think which is funny because recently, ideologically, I've come to that team.
Yeah,
I've been kind of more the ANCAP, right-leaning anarchist since Ron Paul converted me back in 2012, because I was a homeless, sad Republican
politically
guy.
Yeah, sad political. Yeah, we've all been, or many of us have been, including myself, have been the political orphan, angry Republicans. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you hear just this beautiful, just old Texan man just talking about liberty.
Right.
And which is fun because in 2008, I did find him just to be a little too idealistic. And I'm he's not pragmatic. And remember, because I wasn't quite liberty enough back then. But I think something just with my life, those 4 years, by the time 2012, I was by that point in university. So it's kind of I don't know, different time, things different.
Right, absolutely. So I personally vouch for everything I have seen from Jacob Hornberger. And I think that, I get some of the, I think in the last debate, Jacob felt the need to draw a sharp contrast between himself and Justin Amash, and I guess just the pragmatist argument in general. And I understand that because I try to do the same. I think some saw it come off as maybe too argumentative. But I will say, like I said, I certainly believe for many reasons that Vermin Supreme is our best pick for president, and I've said so from the beginning, and I'll say so until the delegates decide who they want to choose. But I will say I think Jacob is a good dude and a solid libertarian. And I think that's obviously have to be politic about my answers now that I'm actually running for elected office. But I will say no. I think he's a solid guy. I've seen him firsthand. I think he's serious about what he wants to do. I think he's sincere about it. And again, I can't vouch for past stuff because I haven't looked enough into it. I also, the longer something goes on, I tend to look more at what they're doing now. So I leave it up to every individual to look into those things and decide what they think. Because as I said, some have said he was 100% in the right. Some have said he was 100% in the wrong. Some have said somewhere in between. And I've been too busy doing delegate service and spreading the libertarian message to really look into what happened back in 99 or 2000. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I just want to add one more detail before I hang up or
Sure.
you hang up on me.
I'm not going to hang up on you.
Is that I'm just trying to be courteous. But no, it's that with Hornberger that he fairly recently, I think even as of up to a month ago, maybe even sooner, he's been doing like this video series on his YouTube channel, just going after Amash, just on all this random it's just like him ranting about him. He's been doing it seemingly for a while, just to let people know. Like, so for me, my big worry then it would be kind of a unity issue because, like, right now, Spike, you're being very good about your answer. You're being a unifying guy, which I respect, and which is why you're like one of my top dudes. I mean, it's like you and Larry Sharp, man, at this point. Which is impressive because I've been in love with Larry Sharp forever.
Well, thank you. And by the way, I've been in love with Larry forever too. So this is definitely not I think Larry Sharp is bad or anything like that. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you've earned it, man. Because you're doing a good job. You and Vermin have both been doing a really good job. And I mean, it's like, in my personal opinion, because I am a radical too, and like when I see other radicals, in my opinion, going out there and just their messaging, and I think some of the messaging and the ways they're doing things is just not appealing to anyone. It's like, what are you doing? But when I see what you and Vermin are doing, it gives me hope.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
That we can have like pragmatic, radical people, and I don't mean pragmatic in that dirty way.
No, actual pragmatism, and I say this a lot. It's something that doesn't work ever shouldn't be called pragmatism. I think real pragmatism, real incrementalism is the idea that in order for us to affect change, we have to actually affect the culture and we have to actually get elected to positions of power and influence so that we can make our ideas spread and actually affect things. And when I say make our ideas spread, we should get into positions in government so that we can actually start making policy decisions. That's when the incremental change could happen. Up until we actually are in those positions, we have to present our entire message of what our actual goals are so that we can start incrementally working towards that by affecting the culture and by getting elected to those positions. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what I did for my campaign. Like, I would even questionnaires and stuff, and like I would answer very radically and honestly, but I'd also be like, well, listen, I'm not going to be the guy who's going to press the button and end it all tomorrow. That's not my deal. Let's work together. I get it. It's like a domino thing. If you pull out you take down the wrong domino at the wrong time, it all collapses down horribly. Next thing you know it, you got a power vacuum, and the next thing you know it, you got like fascists taking over or commies taking over. And not the good commies, like the really, really bad commies, like the Stalin commies.
Right. No, I understand. The tankies. Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah, we have to be empathetic in our messaging. We have to affect the culture by having people see that we have the best ideas and do so in a way that also demonstrates that we actually care about them and care about their future and are doing this for their future. So I do appreciate your call and I thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks. All right, so we got some more. Thank you all for your calls. You're welcome to keep calling in. Drew Lewis says the Second Amendment, of course, was allowed was to allow us to have equal force to fight back if a government becomes tyrannical. With your stance on legalization of recreational plutonium, does this include use for personal atomic arms to equalize power? This is one of the most fun things to talk about when we talk about weapons, because if we take the logical conclusion that government should not have any weapon that the people themselves cannot have, that takes us in a very interesting direction, because nuclear weapons are a thing. They exist. So can we have them? Well, let's drill into that for a second. First of all, nuclear weapons are only something that someone would want if they wanted to spend tremendous amounts of money to be able to have the ability to kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, or even tens of millions of people in one pop. In order to do that, you have to be both a sociopath and you have to be able to have tremendous amounts of money. Now, in just natural human existence, it is not possible for someone to be that murderous, to be able to attain a weapon like that without seizing to attain that kind of power and money without also seizing power. So once you remove the coercion, the need and the demand for nuclear weapons in the first place drops precipitously. The need for someone to have the ability to either kill a bunch of people or have that, deterrent ability to stop someone else who has one so that they won't try to kill you and a bunch of people because they know you'll be able to kill them and a bunch of people, that goes away for the most part. Now, in light of that, in the absence of that, would someone who wants to spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing, storing, and keeping safe a nuclear weapon be able to do so? I guess so. But guess what? Nuclear weapons aren't just automatic weapons. Nuclear weapons also are radioactive. And depending on how they're stored, that radioactivity can seep out into other people's properties. Well, in a truly non-coercive society, in a voluntary society that is based on self-ownership and property rights, that seeping of radioactivity and toxic waste is an aggression against others and would have to be treated as such. A very serious aggression, because this is, radioactivity that can last for thousands or tens of thousands of years. So the question is someone who would be so remote and so wealthy to decide to have a nuclear weapon for no real good reason be able to have one? I guess so. But here's the real question. Who do you trust less with weapons in general, but especially nuclear weapons? Some individual who wants them for some reason, or governments who have used them and threatened to use them? This is similar to the question about automatic weapons. Well, we can have automatic weapons. People will be killing each other. Well, okay. There are however many thousands of Americans who legally own automatic weapons and who largely haven't killed anyone. Then we have the government who has automatic weapons legally and kills people every day. Who do you trust more? Similar to the question of the protesters with guns. We see protesters go out with guns. They don't harm anyone. They have the guns. They do their protesting, they yell, they hold their placards, whether you agree with their protesting, what they're protesting or not, whatever. They go out, they protest, they go home. No one is hurt, at least not by the guns. The police are out there too. They have guns and they put people in cages and they arrest people and they tase people and they shoot people and they beat people. The question to me always goes, why should I trust a person or just an organization of people that are acting voluntarily more than an organization who has demonstrably harmed people anytime they possibly can for little to no reason? So that's how I would answer that. And 209 area code, who am I speaking with?
Hi, my name is Katie.
Katie?
Yes.
Hi, Katie. How can I help you?
Good. Is this number for the Spike Cohen live stream?
This is the number for Spike Cohen. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Yourself?
I'm doing amazingly. How can I help you?
Do you have any positions open for to call in?
Yeah, I've got a position open right now. What's going on?
I just want to say hi to Spike.
Hi. It's great to meet you.
Oh, it is Spike. Hi, Spike. Pleasure meeting you. I'm a libertarian socialist, and there are things we don't agree on, but I am voting for you and Vermin in this election.
Well, that means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your time. Did you have a question for me?
Oh, that is. I just did. Sorry, I just had a brain fart. Okay, who would you prefer, Rothbard or Mises?
Rothbard or Mises? Well, I mean, I guess if I had to choose between one of those, I would probably go with Mises, just if only because he's the father of a lot of the ideas that Rothbard came up with. I really have never thought of one versus the other because there's so much overlap between their beliefs. But I guess I'd have to pick Mises. But I really, like I said, I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about that.
Good answer. I've always preferred Mises over Rothbard.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Mises was definitely at times more nuanced than Rothbard may be. I will say this, and this is true of any thinker. Rothbard and Mises, and really anyone. I mean, if you come up with any philosopher, they're going to have statements that they made or decisions that they made. You know, we joke about late Rothbard and some of his positions of unleashing the police on people towards later on in life and things like that. And we don't agree with those things, and we can look at people's beliefs as the totality of their beliefs and take both the good and bad, take the good from it, remember the bad from it, and rather than try to either vilify or deify someone, just look at the good and the bad of what they've said, and take the parts that you agree with out, take the parts that you disagree with, and put those aside, and recognize that we're all imperfect human beings who will do and say things that aren't necessarily the best at all times. So, but I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Oh, can I ask one more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Mises or Spooner?
Oh man, I'd probably have to go with Spooner on that one.
Same here.
Yeah, I listen. Spooner's one of the people that reading his work, and I like a lot of what Mises wrote, but man, reading No Treason, and even just reading some of the quotes from No Treason before I read the whole thing, that just hit me hard. That woke me right out of statism and really made me re-examine some stuff with just a couple paragraphs that kind of Spooner pilled me into reading the rest of No Treason. Yeah, I would almost certainly have to go with Spooner over that.
Is it right if I say something real quick about Spooner?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I have a disorder known as dissociative identity disorder. Basically my psyche fractured when I was young and created other alternative personalities. Well, my main other alternative personality married Max Stirner and Spooner together. He follows Spooner for egoist reasons.
That's very interesting. If I'm trying to remember now. One of them was influenced by the other. Is that correct?
I don't know how much. I don't know if they really influenced each other. They were around the same time.
Around the same time, yeah.
Because Stirner was more to the left and post-left, and Spooner was a little bit more leaning to the right.
Yeah, although Spooner was also, I mean, he did espouse some, what we would now call, libertarian socialist ideas or market anarchist ideas. So he was kind of all over the place on that. He certainly was every bit as irreverent towards some of the private institutions as he was towards, obviously, the public ones. But so anyway, I hope that I answered your questions.
Yes, thank you so much. Hey, have a good run.
Thank you.
I
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night. So, let's see what's going on here. Jason Lyon, noted non-top fan, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth host, and the Muddied Zoom co-host, Jason Lyon of Muddy Waters Media, even though he's not a fan, says, if Henry McMaster were to decide to run for POTUS under the LP banner, how would you welcome him to your ticket? I would welcome him by giving my best Foghorn Leghorn impersonation and telling him to leave. I mean, anyone who's watched my shows have definitely seen my opinion of him. I don't have that picture up right now, but if I did, I'd have it up, and I would be doing his whole, you gotta stay in your house. I don't have a good Foghorn Leghorn. I really don't impersonate people well anyway. Stephen Messina says, he believes that we maybe are not radicals, at least not in an absolute sense, and that makes the messaging easier. I agree. I mean, I prefer to say that we are principled and honest and upfront and unapologetic about our beliefs. I think radical is a term that we have chosen to, make our own, like how, with the term Yankee or something like that, we've chosen to embrace it. But like I said, I believe we're the pragmatists. I believe that anyone who wants to get us a seat at the table by using the method that has worked in so many other successful political disruptive movements is in fact a pragmatist. They understand the reality of what it takes to affect the body politic, generally speaking, the general public. So I consider myself a pragmatist. So these are the questions. I don't think Katie of the Nordic System says, "Hey Spike." Hey Katie. Shane Hazel says, "What's up?" Hey, Shane Hazel, by the way. Two things about Shane. One, I was on his show it aired this Monday, 2 days ago, on Radical. So go look up Radical with Shane Hazel. That's a really cool show. I had an appearance on there. Shane is also the Libertarian nominee running for the U.S. Senate seat in Georgia. So be sure to check him out on social media and go and support his campaign. He's a great guy, and he's doing some great stuff down there. Former, I believe, Marine. I know he was a serviceman. Came out of it incredibly anti-war and has been promoting a very, a message of ending the wars, ending government intrusion in our daily lives, and just dismantling the beast. And he's a real good guy, and I definitely like him. So be sure to check out my episode and be sure to check out everything Shane's doing. So I think, if I'm looking correctly, I believe I've got all the questions there. So where are we at? Yeah, we're almost at, we're coming up on just over an hour and a half, so we'll probably close it out now. So unless any other calls or questions come in, I'll start to close things out. And so here's some things that are coming up. We have many AMA, Vermin Supreme and I, part of the Vermin Supreme Spike Cohen ticket. We have many AMA events and town hall events. If you are a delegate, you will more than likely be hearing from us either on Zoom or a phone call or both. So be sure to look out for that. If you are a delegate, a Libertarian Party delegate, and you would wish to speak with me without waiting to hear from me, you want to get ahead of the line, be sure to reach out to me on social media, on Twitter @RealSpikeCohen, or on Facebook @LiterallySpikeCohen. You can actually use, I just found this out, if you go on Facebook, you could just go to facebook.com/LiterallySpikeCohen, or in the Facebook search bar, you can put @LiterallySpikeCohen and it will come up. So I would love to hear from you, and we can set up a phone call. I'd be happy to do that. And I will be on, I can't even count the number of events and debates and AMAs and things I will be on over the next week and a half. I will be here again on Wednesday. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday to the Muddy Waters of Freedom, where Matt Wright and I will parse through the week's events. And it's going to largely be a final push for our campaign, for the Vermin Spike campaign. And then on Wednesday, probably the same thing. And I believe I'm going to have a special guest. I can't tell you who it is yet, but be sure to tune in next week for that. And I hope to see you. If you are a delegate, again, I love you very much. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to vote for me. No, I'm saying that because I always loved you. It's always been you. I always knew it. And I'm finally proud enough and brave enough to say it. But no, I would love to hear from you. I would love to have your support and your vote and your endorsement. And if there's anything I can do to achieve that, please be sure to reach out to me so I can do so. So that is, just looking through the last thing, that is all of the comments that are coming through on my comment stream anyway. If I did miss any questions, I will be happy to go through and answer them in the comments, either later tonight or tomorrow. So if I did miss you, I promise to get you at some point, get back to you at some point. But thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week, and God bless you.
In reality, you are my kin, though I view the world through another's iris. If you slide in my kicks, it might fit. We might just unite and come together, become hybrid, at the least slightly like-minded. Indeed, the life I've lived brings light to kindness. All you need is a sign. Put a cease to the crimes, put an ease to the minds like mine. Sometimes darkness is all I find. You know what they say about an eye for an eye in a time when the blind lead the blind. Who am I to deny I would cry when a loved one dies? I recognize that body outside, but the holes in the body that was alive. Now confined to a chalk outline. Find out how, but you never know why. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. That's my sister, mother, father, brother, son. That's one of mine. All these years I close my eyes, open up to only find I'm in line.